Hello and welcome to Film 2900, Introduction to Film Genres. And we're going to be studying the horror film. My name is Jay Morris, and things are kind of getting hectic here before the first day of class, so I thought I'd do this introductory lecture and send it out to you. This is the first time I'll be teaching this course in a 6-week session. So cut down some of the work, but we're still going to watch a lot of films. You're still going to be expected to do a lot of work. So buckle down, 6 weeks, get your 3 credit hours. I think you'll learn a lot about horror films, a lot about films in general, a lot about critical analysis of films. So I have a nice timeline figured out for you. So you buckle down, get the work done, and I think you'll do well in this course. First of all, a little bit about me. I want you to know that I'm available to you if you get stuck, whatever. You can text me. I have my text on my information. You can email me. I usually answer even on weekends. If you do text me, make sure you put your name on there so I know who's texting me. I'm also around at OU Eastern during the summer, so you could call out there. If you're from OU Eastern, you can stop by and get an appointment. A little bit about myself. I got a bachelor's degree from West Virginia University, a bachelor's of science in journalism, and I have a master's in telecommunications from Southern Illinois University. And a little bit about why I like horror films. I grew up in Weirton, West Virginia, a little small steel town, and I really enjoyed going to the Plaza Theater and seeing double features on Saturdays. And I also lived two streets over from the Bel Air Drive-In. So in the summers, you would go in and watch R-rated movies when you're about 11 or 12 or 13 that you shouldn't have been seeing in the 1970s, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I really enjoyed horror films at a young age. Also, there was a show on Channel 11 in Pittsburgh at the time that ran about 20, 25 years called Chiller Theater. And it was on every Saturday night. They had a host called Chilly Billy Cardilli, and he would show a different horror film each week. And they'd have little vignettes in between the commercial breaks, and I really enjoyed that. So some of the stuff we're going to learn about in this course is what makes us scared and why. And why do audiences like to be scared? Horror films have been around since the beginning of films, since the very first silent films. So we're going to take a look at kind of the cycles of horror films. They change a little bit periodically as the society changes, as things that make us scared change, but horror itself has never really gone away. So we'll kind of go in chronological order, take a look at the various cycles and how they fit into what was going on in the society at the time. One of the things I hear from a lot of my students after taking one of my film courses is that I just can't watch movies anymore. I'm always analyzing them. So I'll take that to be a compliment. And I hope that you find this course annoying in the same way, and that afterwards you just can't eat popcorn. You got to say, hey, that was a nice pan. That was a nice mobile camera shot. So I think you'll enjoy the course that way. I think most of you have probably had a Blackboard course. I give you a timeline to follow each week, what to read, what to do, what to watch, and I think you'll be able to follow it relatively easily that way. I also have some supplemental clips. You'll be able to look at the Blackboard and I think navigate it rather easily, but if you have any problem, let me know. This is probably the best thing to do first, is to watch this, and before you email and say, I'm having problems with something, take a look at this first and kind of go through all the buttons and see how everything's laid out. I think you'll be fine. But the big thing is just always remember that you can get a hold of me if you have any problems. I think I'm very accessible. As I said, the course objectives, the horror films is kind of neglected genre. I think critics kind of poo-poo the genre a little bit, but there have been a lot of great horror films. Horror films are very instrumental in the history of film in general because of some of the great filmmakers and stars along the way. So I think you'll enjoy looking at some of the top films of each cycle. And as I said, we're going to look at these various cycles that have changed in theme and style, and our lectures will focus on those cycles. And we'll kind of go in chronological order up to today. And the main thing we're going to try to focus in on is how to analyze films and try to learn what makes us scared. So if you see the curtain in the background moving, that's my beagle. I'll show you my two dogs as we end this. So you might hear them walking around. But of course, he's going to sit right next to me and not leave my side during the whole thing and be annoying. The reading assignments I'm going to post. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pare this back a little bit for the semester. So I'm going to have the same amount of readings as I do in the full-blown course, but the questions will only be on some of the readings. So if you don't see questions for the readings, those will be optional for you. So I'm going to leave them on there because some people like to go ahead, or maybe you'll come back to them along the way if you're really interested. But the ones that have questions pertaining to the individual articles, those will be the ones that are that you'll have to read for the course and you might be tested on. The other ones will be optional, but I'm going to leave them on there. I think this is a lot better than buying a book or buying a reading packet or something. I hope it saves you some money with these PDF files. The other thing that's kind of weird is whenever I dump the PDF files and the reading assignments are kind of 1, 4, 3, 2, I haven't figured out a way, or our IT guy hasn't figured out a way to get those in the specific order, but I think you'll be able to figure it out. A little bit about the assignments and the grading system. The assignments is basically a 90, 80, 70 grading system that you're used to with A's, B's, B pluses, B minuses thrown in, so you can always follow along. There's 500 points in this course, and midterms 100, final exams 100, the film notes that you're going to do are 100, discussion board postings, you're going to do 10 of those, 5 points each, 50 points, film analysis paper 100, and you'll have 2 different reading assignments, and those are going to be to help your grade, 25 points each for 50 total. Submission of assignments, rather than do Blackboard, I don't have that many students this summer, so I wanted you to submit to my email address in Word document files with attachments for the assignments, rather than do it through the Blackboard. I know most people set it up through their Blackboard. I think I'm going to do it this way this time. Please use your Ohio University email accounts, your ohio.edu accounts. It's easier to follow than a Yahoo account or a Hotmail account, so I know what it is. Now, the films for this course that we're going to be watching in this course, the way I want you to watch them is to download the films yourself, or to stream them in some format. A lot of these you may, if you have an extensive collection, you may own some of them. I know there aren't very many video stores at all out there. So most stuff's downloaded. I know some of you know all the illegal ways to download films and quasi-legal ways to download films. So you can go to those sites as well. Also, too, if you see if it's going to be like on Comcast, or if it is on Comcast, let me know and I'll let the other class members know. Also, sometimes YouTube still has the full film on YouTube, and I'll let you know if I find any of those. If you have any problems or difficulties, let me know about finding films. But I don't think very many of them. None of them are obscure, so you should be able to find them. Now, as far as there's my beagle, right on cue. Now, what I've given you in this course is a timeline, week by week, and hey, boy, be quiet. Week by week. So it'll tell you what films to download and view. It'll tell you what reading assignments, what streaming lectures, and I have streaming lectures for each week about the cycles and the film that we're going to be watching. And it also has video clips from other horror films. So you're going to get a wide variety of at least clips about other horror films to watch. And then also the reading assignments will be in that week's timeline, and discussion board postings. Okay, now here's one thing to note. In some weeks, I think 4 or 3 of the 6 weeks, you'll have 2 films to watch that week. I don't think it's going to be too much for you, because if you're taking this course, you probably like horror films. So to watch 2 movies in a week is probably not a big deal for you. So in those weeks, you have to watch 2 films and do 2 discussion boards, 1 for each film, and two discussion boards each. We'll get into that in a second. Some other things you'll note on your timeline is we'll have a midterm the week 4, May 30th through June 5th. And those are going to be proctored exams, paper and pen exams that you'll go to testing sites to take. Dorinda Hoyd will be your contact person in Athens. I'll give you study guides as we get closer to this. Okay, so that's a little bit about the syllabus. Next we'll talk about a little bit more in depth about the discussion board postings. What we try to do with the discussion board is to give a flavor like we would in a lecture style class, where we would view the film and then afterwards we would talk about the film in a little bit more detail with the class and getting varying views. What I want to do with the discussion boards is I post for each film a series of questions. So I want you to answer those questions. So that's 5 of your points there. Then the other 5, posting that you'll do is to respond to another one of your students' posting. So then that way you get kind of a flavor of whether people think about it. You could disagree, agree, and be nice when you disagree, but everybody disagrees about films. They're passionate about films. So don't feel funny if you do disagree with somebody. Just go in a little bit of detail rather than I agree, I think she's right, that kind of thing. Go in a little bit more detail. Also, I'll be posting some various postings about your postings as well. You can always respond to those as well, and I think it'll be a nice little branching that you'll see. When you post, try to post something clever in your subtitle to make people want to read it. We only have 9 people in the course, so there's no reason why you shouldn't get a chance to read everybody's posting about each film. And you can do multiple postings. You don't just have to do 2. Those are just what I want to see is 2 from everybody. Feel free to go in and talk to several people on the discussion board. Also on the discussion board, so you'll learn a little bit more about each other, I have the student surveys that you fill out. You can go look at that and see different people's preferences and what they like, what they dislike about horror films, what their hometowns are, that kind of thing. And I also, on the discussion board postings, give you an example from a fellow student, and you can go check it out. Now, next on the assignments are the film notes. And I have a whole, under our assignments button, I have a whole thing about how to do film notes. Just wanted to kind of go over those briefly, though. I go through an entire film notes section by section with Bride of Frankenstein in one of the first lectures, so you can get a good idea of what I'm looking for in your film notes. You're going to do 1 set of film notes for 100 points. So choose a film that you really like in this course that you want to spend some time with. I think that'll make it work out better for you. And basically, you're going to critically analyze this film in subsection by subsection. I have 2 videos that you watch about film techniques and terminology. One that I produced a long time ago, 20-some years ago. You'll notice I'm a lot younger in it, but all the shots and the terminology still hold true. And one I also have that I found on YouTube from Lord of the Rings, which shows different clips and how to recognize different film moves within movies. And that's what I want you to get from this film too. I want you to be able to watch any kind of film, any kind of TV show, and know what the shots are, know what the film terminology is for those different moves and techniques. So in your film notes, I want you to watch those, and I want you to give examples and talk in terms of terminology: panning, low angle, high angle, fixed frame movement, these kind of things. So when you do your film notes, you're going to do it that week that we watch the film and turn it in on that Sunday. You'll see the various due dates around each of the films. So some of the subsections, as I said, in Bride of Frankenstein, we go over each one of those. But themes and motifs will be the first one. Themes is what you feel that the director's trying to get is an overall idea of the film. What's the most prevalent idea he's trying to show in that film. And motifs would be some of the underlying ideas that kind of build upon that main theme. And again, there's no right and wrong. This is going to be your opinion. Plot synopsis, keep this brief, 3 or 4 sentences, kind of like you'd read in a synopsis on screen for information when you hit on your Comcast button. Special and creative use of a camera. This is going to be 5 examples from the film. I want you to be very in-depth, and again, I want you to use that terminology from the film and talk about what you see in each film. So you might want to jot down notes as you watch those so that it triggers when you go back to write your film notes. Mise en scene is a French term, and it's called setting of the scene. And each director, if he's a very good director, he takes very meticulous care in each scene, what the people are wearing, what the actors are wearing to convey more about their character. Also, each part of the set design should tell something about the story or about the people that you're seeing on screen, and then how they're positioned between each other. So you're going to want to talk about these various aspects. You'll learn more about mise en scene as you go along, but you're going to talk about 2 separate scenes in mise en scene in that section. Music and sound effects. Don't forget your sound effects there. And how does the music create mood? In suspense and story building, it's kind of a step ladder as you're watching any kind of good film, especially a horror film. And then the apex is at the top here, and I want you to pick that scene out that you think is the crescendo of the film, the apex of the film. Symbolism, I think you've learned a lot about that probably in your literature courses, what stands for what in a film, and I want you to give some examples of that. Acting and performance highlights, what stands out as the best acting scenes, best dialogue. Sometimes you can cite specific scenes there. Criticism. You don't have to dislike a film to be critical of it. Sometimes your best, most beloved films you'll still be critical of, but give solid examples. For example, in Psycho, very good film, but at the end it kind of drags down as the psychiatrist explaining what Norman Bates was all about. Notable quotations of the film, that'll be things that help in terms of dialogue that build upon the theme. You cite the specific terms of dialogue and tell how they set up the film, how they work in that film. And again, I would like for you to submit these to me via my email in document form rather than cut and paste. Next, we will talk about the final paper for the course, and it'll be due on the next to last week of the course. And I'll give you 3 options for the final film analysis. The first option are 3 films by a horror director. And I've given you a bunch of examples here. And again, what I want you to do is if it's a director who spanned a great deal of time, somebody like Wes Craven, might want to pick something from his earlier period like Last House on the Left, something in the middle like Nightmare on Elm Street, something towards the end like Scream, and maybe talk about how he progressed as a filmmaker. Does he do certain things the same way? Did he do something completely different? Does he use the same kind of themes? And I give you a bunch of directors you can choose 3 films from, but you might know some others, some foreign directors from Hong Kong, maybe some new ones that are kind of obscure that I don't have on the list. That's fine. Also, too, within this, I would like for you to be very specific. And again, it's not a research paper. This is a critical analysis from you about the director himself. So I don't really want to see a whole bunch of background about where he went to school and all kind of stuff you looked up. I'd rather the majority of it be about the 3 films that you're looking at and how you analyze those 3. The second option is the final film analysis is of a film that we didn't watch in class. And you're going to analyze this film in depth, similar to like an expanded, an expanded set of film notes without all the subtitles. Picture yourself as writing for Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Rolling Stone, and you're going to do a film review. This is going to be your work. I really don't want a lot of background about how it was done and research and things. It's a critical analysis that you're going to set up on your own, and you choose the horror film that you like. The third option would be a compare and contrast of an original horror film with its remake. And in the last 15 years, there's been a ton of remakes done. I'll give you a whole list here, and I'm sure I've missed quite a few. And you can do that. You can also take a foreign horror film that's been remade into an Americanized version of that. That might work well for it. I'll give you a couple examples of those. But it's very similar. Compare and contrast and critical analysis, and this is going to be your work on that paper. So I really want to see your voice in these papers. What I look for in a good paper, and I have examples on there too that you can go back and look at what other ones that I consider A papers to give you an idea. But just in all papers that you write, some things to consider. Have an attention-getting opening paragraph. Don't just put, I chose to write about. Find some way to draw the viewer in, just as though he's reading a magazine and you don't want him to put your analysis of your film down. You want him to read it. Attention-getting opening. Don't try to cram too much in that opening paragraph. And then after that, in the body of the paragraph, your lead sentence is going to be a thesis to what the rest of the paragraph is going to be about. Specific examples under that. You move on to the next paragraph, the next idea, specific examples for that. And then in the concluding paragraph, don't just end your paper. Find a good way to conclude it and tie everything and all the loose ends together. And I think you'll have a successful final film analysis. And then the final exam is going to be very similar in format to the midterm. Basically, true, false, multiple choice, fill-ins. What I do with the questions on the final exam and the midterm for the films, I'll say something like, cite an example of special camera use in Bride of Frankenstein, and you'll give a specific example from the film. Give an example of symbolism from American Werewolf in London. Those are the kind of questions I would ask from the specific films to fill in. I'll give you the essays prior to the exam so you can take a look at them, see which two you'd like to do, and kind of get in your mind what you'd like to do as far as that essay question. So again, that's a little bit about this film, and if you have any questions, don't feel free to get a hold of me via text, telephone. If you're an Eastern student, stop by my office during work hours, and I usually get back to you as soon as I can, within 24 hours for the most part. So now, let me show you my dogs. And this is Sadie, and last Saturday, she had what the vet thinks was a stroke, and she could barely stand up at that point, but she's gotten a lot better, and just a little bit ago, she went to the bathroom by herself, so we think she's getting a lot better, and she's 13 years old, so she's a nice old girl. And this is Mr. Yachty. He's a rescue beagle. He was an abused beagle in the pound, and we brought him home 6 years ago. He was scared to death, and now he's very nice, and he follows Sadie all around, and he acts crazy. And he doesn't like to be on video. He's very scared right now.